Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to listen very carefully today. Get your popcorn ready because something just happened, quietly, almost politely, that could crack the financial foundation of the European Union. Not a bomb, not a bank run, though it possibly could lead to one. Not a vote. I don't even know if they have those in the EU. But a single accounting decision. And it came from Washington. Because, according to the Washington Post, the United States has officially notified EU countries that it wants frozen Russian sovereign assets included in a negotiated settlement of the Ukraine war. Let that sink in. That one sentence might be the pin pulled on the EU financial grenade. And yes, it's very possible Trump and Scott Bessent are intentionally applying pressure to expose a system that was never meant to survive peace. We're doing a deep dive today, and I promise you, today's show is going to be one of those shows where halfway through you're going to go, oh, wow, that's bad. But before we get there, let's talk about why markets are pretending everything is fine. Because right on cue, we get bullish CPI numbers just in time for rate cuts. November CPI. Headline inflation, 2.7% below expectations of 3.1%. Core CPI, 2.6%. Also below expectations. Is it real? Of course not. Is it convenient? Absolutely. And what does that mean? Incoming rate cuts, incoming liquidity. Oh yeah, we'll be bringing the cowbell, baby. Ring-a-ling-a-ling. And President Trump, he's gonna love those numbers, especially because he just said this.
Many Americans are unaware that behind the scenes, the technical backbone of the financial system is decades out of date, many, many years out of date. You know that. Paul and others are straightening it out, but payments and money transfers are costly and take days or even weeks to clear. Under this bill, the entire ancient system will be eligible for a 21st century upgrade using the state-of-the-art crypto technology. Who would have thought we would have been saying that 2 years after?
So let me get this straight. We're on the cusp of peak institutional Bitcoin adoption, right before the largest Bitcoin and crypto regulatory framework approval ever, with US banks custodying Bitcoin, while global liquidity is turning back on. And I am supposed to believe that Bitcoin topped? With no blow off top, no mania, with no real bare thesis? Maybe some, short-term pain, but the ending still the same. All right, no more screwing around. Let's get to the move that could break Europe.
Все полагали, что за короткий период времени Россию они разрушат, развалят. А европейские подсвинки тут же включились в эту работу прежней американской администрации в надежде поживиться на развале нашей страны. Вернуть себе что-то, что было утрачено в прежние исторические периоды. И попытаться взять реванш. Как теперь всем стало очевидным, все эти попытки и все эти деструктивные планы...
Here's the headline. The United States has notified the EU that frozen Russian assets should be incorporated into a negotiated peace settlement. Sounds reasonable, right? Wrong! Because this immediately exposes a massive problem for Brussels. No, not the stinky vegetable. Europe claims that those assets are frozen, but functionally, they've already been used. Not seized outright, but collateralized. The EU pledged windfall profits, future proceeds, interest income from Russian central bank assets to back long-term loans for Ukraine. And this wasn't a secret. It's in the EU and G7 policy frameworks, and that entire financing model relied on one assumption. Either the war never ends or Russia is decisively defeated. A negotiated peace breaks that assumption. And their bags. The moment the US says these assets are part of a settlement, everything changes. That's why these degenerate leaders are trying to force Europe into war.
We need to be ready. Because at the end of this first quarter of the 21st century, conflicts are no longer fought at arm's length. Conflict is at our door. Russia has brought war back to Europe, and we must be prepared for the scale of war our grandparents and great-grandparents endured. Imagine it, a conflict reaching every home, every workplace. Destruction, mass mobilization, millions displaced, widespread suffering and extreme losses. It is a terrible thought. But if we deliver on our commitments, this is a tragedy we can prevent. NATO is here to protect 1 billion people on both sides of the Atlantic. Our mission is to protect you, your families, your friends, and your future. We cannot let down our guard, and we won't. I count on our governments to keep up with their commitments and go further and faster, because we cannot falter or fail. Listen to the sirens across Ukraine. Look at the bodies pulled from the rubble. Think of the Ukrainians who might go to sleep tonight and not wake up tomorrow. And what is standing between what's happening to them and what could happen to us? Only NATO. I have a duty as Secretary General to tell you what lies ahead if we don't act faster, invest in defense, and continue our support for Ukraine.
The gaslighting is absolutely incredible, and probably why Putin called them piggies, referencing a little Animal Farm maybe. But their ultimatum appears to be support Ukraine or go die for a country, not even a country. It's more like an unelected statist conglomerate that destroyed the actual plural nation's sovereignty and put citizens in prison for Facebook posts. We'll see how that works out for them, because once those assets must be treated as temporary, not permanent, loans need to be unwound, balance sheets need to be clarified, legal exposure surfaces, and guess who's left holding the bag? Not Mother Russia, not Los Estados Unidos, Europe. Big Brother is getting it. This hits EU financial institutions and member state balance sheets, which is why Brussels and those NATO lunatics are panicking. Sadly, peace is destabilizing for the EU. War allowed emergency governance, asset control, sanctions as financing tools, debt-backed escalation. Peace forces transparency, legal clarity, asset unwinding, and for them, real losses. Ukraine wasn't just a battlefield, it was a pressure valve inside a post-1971 financial system that relies on sanctions and asset control to even function. Trump just touched that pressure point, and the system is straining. Europe's handling of Russian assets appears to be accelerating the collapse of its financial architecture. What matters here isn't intent, it's consequence. Once Europe overrides vetoes, bypasses unanimity, centralizes authority, it signals stress. And once custodial neutrality is broken, trust evaporates. And financial systems that run on trust, capital flight doesn't need a conspiracy, it needs uncertainty. And that uncertainty is now real. Here's the key difference now. The United States is no longer underwriting Europe. Trump's strategy is explicit. Sovereign nations, bilateral responsibility, no blank checks. When the money stops, the rules stop mattering. And when the rules stop mattering, the end becomes inevitable. War almost always follows money. Now watch the contrast, because while the EU is facing collapse, US isn't like sunshine and roses either, but the US did just do something historic. Two seismic announcements, one from the Federal Reserve and one from the SEC. Now first, the Fed. They officially withdrew the 2023 Novel Activities Policy. Banks can now offer Bitcoin custody and integrate stablecoins. This is basically a green light. Second, the SEC updated guidance on custody rules for broker-dealers to hold crypto. They must have exclusive control of private keys. Pros, legal clarity and institutional certainty. Cons, I mean, do I even have to name them? Centralized custody. Our keys, your coins. This is the trade-off. Also, why the responsibility is on you to self-custody. Choose freedom. Don't let them box you in. Hold your own keys, because a flood is coming. We're about to bring it home, but before we do, look at our likes.
3 or 4 times, maybe.
I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
Let's take a quick second for our sponsors who keep this show on the air over at the Bitcoin Way. If your wealth lives in their system, it's not yours, it's theirs. That's why we scream Bitcoin. That's why you self-custody. And that's why you call our friends over at the Bitcoin Way. They'll walk you through multi-sig, self-custody, privacy, how to run a node, and the tools that keep you sovereign when the fiat system pulls the plug. Don't wait till it's too late. Book a free 30-minute consult today using that link in the show notes. Need cash but don't want to sell your Bitcoin? Ledn is the global leader in Bitcoin-backed loans, issuing over $9 billion in loans since 2018, and they were the first to offer proof of reserves. With Ledn, you get custody loans, no credit checks, no monthly payments, and more. Visit learn.ledn.io/simply to learn more and get 25 basis points off your first loan.
Banks in the world to embrace crypto, to embrace Bitcoin in 4 to 8 years would be fast. What you see here is it's happening much faster. What we've seen is BNY Mellon, PNC Bank, Citibank, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Vanguard, all of these have flipped from a hostile, negative, or skeptical view to a positive view in the last 12 months, right? We have announcements. Schwab is going to custody Bitcoin and extend credit against crypto assets early next year. Citi is doing the same thing. It used to be, I couldn't get a loan against Bitcoin from any major bank, and now if I counted the top 10 banks in the United States, 8 of them are actually engaged in crypto lending, and they've all flipped their stance in the last 6 months.
While Europe strains under war financing, U.S. banks are lining up for Bitcoin. So let me leave you with this. While Trump and Bessent challenged the EU's financial architecture, the United States is modernizing finance, legalizing Bitcoin custody, not that it needs it, onboarding institutions, and preparing for a crypto-native system. Europe may be learning the hard way what happens when emergency measures become permanent. And Bitcoin doesn't care. It doesn't need war, and it doesn't need permission. Tick-tock. Let us know what you think below, and maybe we're all in this together. The feeling that the fourth turning is entering an acceleration mode. Like everywhere. It's insane. But we're all here. Now, for a reason, damn it, we are gonna make it. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and give us a pound by sharing the Sound Money Gospel, and I hope you have a great weekend. Love you guys. Catch you next week. Peace.
If you prefer to go down with the ship, you.